Okay, you Raymond Chandler fans all over the world, I'm going to take you to 127 South Vendome Street. And the reason why I'm here is because this is the house where Cissy lived with Julian Pascal and their stepson, Cissy's stepson, Gordon. And this is the house where Raymond left his mom while him and Gordon marched off to fight in the Great War on the Western Front in France in 1917. Okay, thankfully it's still here for you fans of Raymond Chandler all over the world. And this was actually not a little bit north of where Raymond lived with his mom Florence at 311 South Loma, and where Raymond met Cissy and Julian and Gordon was at the Friday and Saturday night soirees that Warren and Estelle Lloyd would have in their drawing room during the late teen era. And it was the club that Warren and Estelle Lloyd had formulated as a literary and artistic salon, was called the Optimist Club. And at that time there was it was hard to get people, to find people with like minds who were interested in poetry, classical music, and art and science. And it was just an island of fellow intellects, and Raymond and his mom were the perfect type of persons for their set, because what with them being from England and Raymond having a classical education, here it is. Here's where Florence was dropped off during the time that Raymond spent on the Western Front with Gordon. And this is the house when he finally came back in 1919, where this is where Cissy decided to leave Julian and marry Raymond, where they actually didn't get married until 1924, and they got married 2 weeks after Florence died in I think she died in February of 1924. And as you can see, most of this is pretty original. Of course, what with the stucco monster attacking all these buildings at that time period, they used to have salesmen. They used to go around and offer their services to cover the beautiful clapboard boards on all the houses. And as you can see, if you're a big fan of Raymond Chandler and his style and the atmosphere that he creates in all his books, thankfully all these buildings are still here, like that one there. That's original. But I've been coming back to this area for years, and I'm surprised because they're actually starting to fix everything up and paint it, like that building right there, what we have in front of us. Anyway, when Raymond joined the Canadian Army, he actually joined the Gordon Highlanders with Gordon, and the reason why he joined the Canadian Army, because they had an allowance for dependents, so that if anything happened to Raymond, the Canadian Army would take care of his beloved mother Florence. And I think they also paid an allowance while he was fighting on the Western Front. And this is where Cissy and him, and of course his mother, she would receive letters from the Western Front in that terrible spring of 1918, what the Germans called the Kaiserschlacht, the final offensive to take Paris. And this is where all the letters would come, 127 South Vendome Avenue. And as you can see, it's pretty original. except of course be too bad, because look at all the houses would have looked like that house over there before the stucco monster attacked. And in this house that we just passed at 127 Vendome, when Raymond finally came back from the Great War, he was 31, but when he left he was 29. And here you go, that's somebody just probably bought this and fixed it up. So that's most likely the way all the houses would have looked before they were attacked by the like I said, the stucco monster. And Raymond was born in 1888, and at the time period at this house here, when he was gonna, when Cissy decided to leave Julian, she was 47 years old, and Raymond was 31. And here's another original. That's the way these houses would have looked right there, with that beautiful clapboard wood. And then here you go, here's the atmosphere that you'll get in a lot of Chandler novels. Thankfully that's still extant, that's original. I'm sure Raymond and Gordon probably used to hang out on the street debating whether they should join the Great War. And I guess they would have probably been drafted anyway. But then again, Raymond was 29 at the time, so he might have been a little bit too old. And what with the horrific losses on the Western Front that the Canadian Army was suffering throughout since 1914, I'm sure they were glad to have old Raymond and Gordon. And if you know anything a little bit about his history in the war, he fought at Arras, and I guess Providence wanted to spare the great Master of Simile, because here it is, folks, because he led an attack. He was a non-commissioned officer, and he attacked a German trench, and all 30 of his men were decimated except him. He was the only survivor. It's amazing, the miracle of Providence. And I guess if you want to put it like that, if Raymond wouldn't have survived, we wouldn't have had that great master that pretty much transformed the genre of detective fiction, hard-boiled detective fiction. And of course, without him, we extrapolated out logically, you wouldn't have had Perry Mason. Well, actually Earl Stanley Gardner was writing the Perry Mason novels. Wait, I think no, he actually wrote the first one in like 1931. So you wouldn't have had, like I said, all the interest in film noir films if it wasn't for Raymond. And if he wouldn't have survived, like I said, he created that whole genre of film noir, hard-boiled detective. Even though you had Dashiell Hammett and you had, like I said, you had others writing, but he perfected it. He elevated it to a higher standard, and he used all these streets right here all over, and this is where he got his inspiration. And Warren and Estelle Lloyd, Warren, he had a hobby of psychology, and he had written a book right before he met Raymond on psychology. It was like his kind of like his hobby horse. And they asked Warren to preside over the discussions at this house whether Cissy should leave Julian. And Paul, the little boy, one of the sons of the Lloyds, he said that he was eavesdropping through one of those windows, and he heard the whole goings on of and how they were talking about whether Cissy should leave Julian. And this was the house, 127 South Vendome. And at that time, after when she left here, Cissy with Raymond, they couldn't get married because Florence was appalled. She was shocked that with her staying in this house throughout the war with Julian and Cissy, she was shocked that in her way Raymond would have paid him back like that. But they say he probably joined the army to get away from those ambivalent feelings that he was having falling in love with some of their best friends, and I mean their best friend, one of his best friend's wives, and okay, well, here you go, folks. This is where the great Raymond Chandler would have walked and hung out. And here's one of the original buildings. I'm sure Raymond would have been walking around here at that time. And okay, well, I'm going to continue on this virtual tour of the great Raymond Chandler of Los Angeles. A few of the places that had significant parts of in his life. And okay, well, here you go, where the great Raymond Chandler left his mom Florence in 1917 to fight the Great War on the Western Front. Okay, thank you very much, and please subscribe to my channel.